This is a story that teaches to never underestimate someone based on what you see. Always value the heart above the surface. And remember that dignity, love, and justice are inseparable when met with courage and patience. Please have you subscribed? Kindly help us reach 1,000 subscribers this month. I know with you we can achieve that. The city streets were slick with rain, neon reflections rippling in puddles as the evening crowd hurried past, eyes down, minds elsewhere. On a corner near a bustling subway station, a man sat huddled beneath a tattered blanket, the chill of autumn biting through his thin jacket. His shoes were scuffed, his hands roughened from days of exposure. A worn cup sat at his feet, a few coins clinking faintly. Passers-by ignored him, some sneering, some shuffling quickly, fearful of proximity. Marcus Carter adjusted the hood over his head and watched the world like a predator disguised as prey. To anyone passing, he was just another nameless, faceless figure, the kind of man society had already dismissed, judged, and written off. But Marcus was far from powerless. Beneath the layers of rags, he wore the mind of a CEO, the strategist of a Fortune 100 company, the wealth and influence that could move industries. Tonight, though, he needed none of that. Tonight, he was invisible by choice. A young woman approached the bench across from him, notebook in hand, brushing droplets of rain from her hair. She glanced at him, eyes briefly flicking with mild curiosity and hesitation. "Do you need anything?" she asked gently, voice tentative, careful not to presume. Marcus smiled faintly, a warmth that contrasted with the world harshness. "A smile is enough," he replied. His words hung in the air, simple yet disarming. But the moment didn't last. A man in an expensive coat and polished shoes stomped over, authority radiating from every step. "Hey, you can't sit there," he barked, voice sharp, dripping with assumed superiority. "This bench is for paying customers. Move along." Marcus met his gaze evenly. "I'm just waiting," he said softly. But the man's lips curled in a sneer. "I don't care. You people always think you can take what's not yours." The words struck harder than any rain-soaked wind. They weren't new, but the venom was always the same. Dismissive, demeaning, laced with the arrogance of someone who assumed the world belonged to them. Around them, a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the confrontation. Some faces were shocked, others indifferent. All felt the tension pressing against the air, thick and suffocating. Marcus's heart beat steadily, not with fear, but with focus. He had spent years navigating spaces that underestimated him, calculated every move, learned every nuance. And tonight, the world was about to learn just how dangerous it could be to misjudge someone by appearance alone. "Do you know who I am?" he asked suddenly, voice calm, controlled. The man in the coat laughed, a sound like snapping twigs. "Who cares? You're just—" Marcus reached into his inner coat pocket and pulled out a sleek, embossed card. In one fluid motion, he handed it to the man. The laughter faltered as the card caught the streetlight. "James Global Holdings, CO, principal shareholder." The words burned through the tension like lightning splitting a stormy sky. The man's jaw tightened. His face paled, eyes wide with disbelief. This can't be." "Yes," Marcus said, standing, voice clear and commanding, every ounce of his presence now fully visible, fully undeniable. "It is. And while you've been hiding behind your privilege, assuming my life, my place, and my worth, I've been observing, learning, and waiting for someone who sees me for more than a stereotype." The crowd murmured, a wave of realization spreading through them. Authority and entitlement were no match for intelligence, dignity, and truth. The arrogance of the oppressor crumbled, leaving the room, street, sidewalk, and gathered onlookers, silent in stunned recognition. Marcus turned back to the woman across from him. She stared, eyes wide, understanding dawning in the slowest, most beautiful way. She had treated him with kindness, without knowing the man behind the guise, without being swayed by the world's assumptions. "You smiled at me before knowing anything about me," he said, a warmth in his voice that contrasted the earlier tension. "And yet, that was enough to show me your heart. That's rare." The woman's lips parted, a mixture of shock, confusion, and awe. I didn't know." Marcus smiled, the rain glistening on his skin like a halo. And you didn't need to. That's what makes this real. But before the connection could deepen, a new figure emerged from the shadows. An associate from his company, urgency etched into every line of his face. Marcus, we've got a situation. Someone's trying to exploit your absence. They've frozen assets, and Marcus froze, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the abrupt reminder that the world rarely paused for truth or fairness. His secret mission to find genuine connection, to seek love beyond prejudice, had just collided with the harsh realities of power, influence, and greed. The woman looked at him, her gaze searching, confused yet unwavering. Marcus reached out, hesitated, and then stepped back, torn between revealing everything fully and protecting her from the storm that his life inevitably brought. The rain intensified, city lights shimmering through the downpour, as Marcus' eyes scanned the street. Justice, dignity, and truth had been revealed tonight. But at what cost? Could love truly blossom when the world still insisted on judging, labeling, and controlling? And as footsteps echoed rapidly from the darkened alley, Marcus realized that the balance of power was shifting once more. But this time, it was only the beginning. Marcus Carter's pulse thumped steadily, not from fear, but from the sudden urgency that had stormed into his carefully constructed night. Rain-slicked streets reflected the neon of the city, each puddle a distorted mirror of the chaos surrounding him. Derek, his trusted associate, approached quickly, soaked to the bone, tablet in hand, eyes wide with worry. "Marcus, they're trying to exploit your absence," Derek said, voice sharp, tremulous with disbelief. "Someone leaked confidential company information while you were out there. They're attempting to freeze assets, reroute mergers, and manipulate board decisions." Marcus inhaled deeply, rainwater mixing with the night air, and focused. This was the reality of his life, the unrelenting clash of power and consequence, but it wasn't fear that propelled him forward. It was clarity. And now, in the midst of chaos, he looked at the woman who had stayed at the park bench through the earlier confrontation. Her presence, steady and kind despite the storm and despite the social assumptions surrounding him, had left an imprint on his heart. She had seen him for who he truly was. Not his wealth, his status, or the layers of clothing meant to disguise him, but his humanity. That moment of recognition had been enough to ignite a spark he hadn't allowed himself in years. Hope. Hope that genuine connection, untainted by prejudice, could exist. Marcus's eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed. The noise of the city, the murmuring crowd, even the rain seemed to fade into the background. She smiled hesitant, yet unwavering, a warmth that cut through the night like sunlight breaking a storm. Before the moment could deepen, the men who had confronted him at the park earlier approached again. Their polished shoes splashed through puddles, coats drenched, faces twisted with indignation and disbelief. They had assumed control of the street in their arrogance, assuming his absence meant power was theirs. Marcus stepped forward, shedding the ragged disguise of the homeless man with deliberate slowness, letting every eye in the street witness the transformation. The tattered coat fell away, revealing a tailored suit that fit him like armor. A subtle, yet undeniable authority radiated from him. The crowd gasped. "You assumed I was powerless because of my appearance," Marcus said, voice even but penetrating, the rhythm of authority matching each drop of rain. "You assumed my worth, my place, and my presence could be dictated by your prejudice. But intelligence, resilience, and dignity are not measured by what you see on the outside." The oppressors' faces drained of color. Their arrogance faltered, and a heavy silence descended over the crowd. The lesson was unmistakable. To judge by race, clothing, or perceived social standing was folly, and the cost of misjudging a person could be public, humiliating, and irrevocable. Marcus turned back to the woman. Rain traced rivulets down her hair and cheeks, yet her eyes shone, unbroken by doubt or fear. He took a step closer. "You treated me with kindness," he said softly, voice carrying over the dripping street. "Without knowing my name, my wealth, or my status. You treated me as a human being first, and that shows the depth of your heart." Her lips parted, eyes wide with awe, realization dawning slowly. I didn't know." "I know," Marcus said, offering a reassuring smile, warmth cutting through the chill. And that's what made tonight possible. I needed to see the world through an honest lens, and I found it in you. At that moment, Derek approached, a flash of urgency on his face, tablet in hand. Marcus, we need to act. The people trying to manipulate the company are moving fast. If we don't intervene, they could cause irreversible damage. Marcus nodded, a decisive calm settling over him. Watch and learn, he murmured. Within moments, he accessed encrypted systems, rerouted critical assets, and neutralized the would-be exploiters with precision. The perpetrators, previously emboldened by arrogance, found themselves publicly exposed, powerless, and humiliated. Justice had been delivered not with violence, but with intellect, patience, and a revelation of truth. The crowd, still gathered in the rain, whispered among themselves. Some faces were shocked, others reflective. The lesson was clear. Prejudice and assumption could crumble instantly in the face of intelligence, integrity, and resilience. Marcus returned to the woman, standing fully in his authority, yet softened by genuine affection. This world judges too quickly, he said quietly, but it's people like you who remind me that kindness, fairness, and integrity are never invisible. You see people, not labels. She stepped closer, hands trembling slightly, then reached for his. The contact was electric, intimate, and unguarded. I wanted to believe that. I hoped someone would be like you. And now, her voice faltered, but her gaze held unwavering faith. Yes, Marcus said softly, taking her hands fully in his. Now you know, and I hope you'll walk beside me, not because of who I am, but because of what we see in each other. The rain slowed, the city lights reflected on the wet streets, and the world seemed quieter, more aware, more patient. In that moment, equality, dignity, and love were not just lessons. They were lived reality. Months later, Marcus and the woman, whose name was revealed as Claire, stood hand in hand beneath the sun-dappled garden arch. Family, friends, and colleagues surrounded them, witnesses to a union that had begun amidst rain, judgment, and disguise. The couple exchanged vows, promising to see each other's hearts before appearances, to uphold dignity and honor resilience. And I promise, Marcus said, voice steady, eyes locking with hers, to always remember that true love is born from understanding, respect, and the courage to see beyond the surface, to judge less, to value more, and to protect what is precious in each other. Claire smiled through tears, her voice steady, filled with love. And I promise to meet you with truth, compassion, and unwavering faith in who you are, always. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the city beyond the garden seemed to shimmer with possibility, a quiet promise that justice, kindness, and dignity could exist even in a world too often blind to it. The story of Marcus Carter, the CEO who hid in plain sight, and Claire, the woman who saw beyond disguise, became more than a tale of romance. It became a testament that resilience, integrity, and the courage to see the truth could break prejudice, inspire justice, and nurture love that was real, enduring, and unshakable. And as they walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, the crowd erupted, not just in applause, but in recognition of the moral they had witnessed. True worth cannot be measured by appearances, and dignity, like love, is always victorious when met with patience, insight, and respect. As Marcus and Claire walked hand in hand beneath the sun-dappled garden arch, the lessons of the long night and stormy streets were clear, not just to them, but to everyone who had witnessed their journey. Marcus thought of the park bench, of the men who had sneered at him and judged him before knowing him. He realized that the world is quick to assign worth based on appearances, on skin, on status, but true value lies in character, integrity, and heart. He had walked among strangers, invisible to assumptions, and found that those who see with empathy, not prejudice, are the ones who truly recognize human worth. Claire reflected on the courage it had taken Marcus to reveal his identity, not in pride, but in the hope that someone could see him for who he was, not for what he seemed. She understood that kindness, when offered without expectation or judgment, has the power to transform lives, to pierce through arrogance, and to illuminate what is real and essential in others. Together, they recognize that resilience is not just enduring hardship. It is rising above the biases, misunderstandings, and limitations that the world imposes. It is the quiet strength to remain dignified in the face of disrespect, the patience to wait for truth to be recognized, and the courage to act with integrity even when unseen. The city, once indifferent and rushing past, seemed to hold a small, quiet acknowledgement of these truths. Marcus and Claire's journey was more than a story of love. It was a testament to justice, equality, and the human spirit. They learned that appearances can deceive, privilege can blind, and assumptions can falter, but honesty, compassion, and courage endure. And as they stepped forward together, ready to begin a life built on respect, trust, and understanding, the moral lingered gently in the air. Never underestimate someone based on what you see. Always value the heart above the surface. And remember that dignity, love, and justice are inseparable when met with courage and patience. If this story inspired you, made you reflect, or reminded you the power of resilience and justice, go ahead and hit that like button. Share your thoughts below. Comment on what part of the story moved you the most, or tell us about someone in your life who embodies courage and integrity. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, so you never miss another story that celebrates strength, equality, and the triumph of the human spirit. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that matter and reminds the world that every voice deserves to be heard.